What is up, everybody? Mr. Curtis here. Welcome to our very first video for AP World. A couple things before we start here I just want to point out and make sure you're aware of. Number one, just a tip. Highly encourage you to pause this video right now. Go grab a notebook and a pen and take some notes while you're watching this. It'll make your life so much easier when it comes time for the test on this unit, when it comes time for any kind of other test that we have, or especially the AP World, that you have notes on this that you actually wrote down to help you remember it, as opposed to going back and rewatching all of these videos. Number two, these videos aren't every single thing you need to know. These are just the basic facts. In class, we will have activities and we'll read stuff and do other things that will help further expand on this and give you kind of specific details to fill in so you have evidence to maybe prove whatever you need to prove, whether it's on an essay or a multiple choice question. Number three, this video is probably going to be a little shorter than the other ones. I just want to give you a sense of what the videos are like and kind of what the questions and what the expectations are for you. So with that, let's get started. This is Unit 1. This is the first, what we call time chunk or time period. It goes from the start of human beings existing on Earth all the way through 600 BCE, which is before the Common Era. Hopefully you learned about some of these terms and dates last year. So with this part one, we're looking at environmental and technological transformations, basically how the Earth transformed environmentally due to human migration and impact of trying to do things that we weren't doing before as human beings. And the other is technological transformations, new technologies that are invented, whether it is, we're talking about tools, farming techniques, eventually art and architecture, all of these transformations that are going to happen in this time period. One thing that we need to think about and know is that there is this big, what we call big geography and peopling of the Earth. The original human beings started and first evolved down here in Africa about 100,000 years ago. And from there, we human beings migrated into this region here of Mesopotamia. And from there, really kind of spread out around the world, traveling down to Southeast Asia and into Australia over here, and coming over across the Bering Strait about 15,000 years ago, and then peopling or populating the Americas. With this, and with people moving to different places, you need to adapt to your environment. You need to figure out new ways and new tools to make depending upon where you're living. So one huge adaptation, obviously, is the creation of fire. Without fire, you can't cook your food, you can't necessarily keep yourself warm, you can't keep animals away from your camp at night. And also you need to create these stone tools. And we're talking about this Paleolithic period, this old Stone Age, where people are going to make these kind of rudimentary tools. And these tools are going to be different depending upon where you are and what you have access to. So what you have access to in Africa is going to be a little bit different than what you have access to in Mesopotamia or in China. So they're going to adapt to it based on those things. So you might see, for example, the tools that are going to be used in the Americas are going to be different than the tools used in Africa, say. So just an example down here of what we're talking about, stone tools. You can kind of see some arrowheads here, which will be used to maybe hunt prey, or you're going to see tools that are going to be used to cut open the animals that were killed for feeding your group, your population. Also, second thing, these groups are going to be nomadic. They're going to travel from place to place. We're talking small bands or small groups of people, maximum 40 people. You just, as a small group, you can't feed much more than that. And if your population grows too greatly, the problem that you're going to run into is people are going to die because you won't be able to feed them. And you can't travel with 60 people. It's just not possible. So the men primarily are going to hunt. The women are going to be gatherers of berries and fruits and other edible things that you can eat. Both of these groups of people are considered equal. Men and women both have kind of an equal stake in everything, an equal goal. They're both feeding the population. Men are not seen as superior. There's really we don't see what we call a patriarchal society when men kind of dominate the political structure. So with these small people, this group of people maybe is migrating and coming this way. We have another group of people who are nomadic moving this way. And when they meet, they're going to exchange ideas. They might exchange goods, things that they might have that one group knows about and the other group doesn't. So we do have this kind of transformation of ideas that is going to happen. So sometime around 8,000 BCE, human beings learned to farm. And I hope that you know this. It's one of those things that most people just kind of remember. The Neolithic Revolution, or the new Stone Age revolution is going to allow early agricultural societies where people are going to be able to settle and begin to farm. It's believed that this happened sometime around the last ice age, which again was around 8,000 BCE. So when you can settle down before you're kind of moving around from place to place, you're limited on what you can take with you. You're limited on how much time and access that you have to things. I mean, you can't make a painting and carry it with you when you're a nomad. But now that we're settled in one place, people have the ability to develop more complex societies and complex systems. But in order to do this, you got to make sure you know you need to domesticate. You need to be able to have animals that can stay in a pen maybe, or will follow you around if you're a herder. You need crops that you know you can reliably plant those seeds and they will grow, assuming that you're near a river and you can water them. So a couple areas here, right here we have the Fertile Crescent, which is our cradle of civilization, which is where the Tigris and Euphrates River are. You can see down here, we're looking at, these are the domesticated items that they have: barley, cattle, goats, pigs, sheep, wheats. We're domesticating plants and we're domesticating animals. Every animal that you can think of in human history, somebody tried to domesticate it. That lion, some poor sucker tried to domesticate lions and took a little baby lion, I don't even know what's called, cub, or I'm not sure, I'm not a science person, but they took this animal and tried to domesticate it, and they brought it up and from a young baby, and then at some point they got their face torn off by the lion, and they were like, oh, we can't domesticate lions. But they realized we can domesticate dogs and pigs and cattle and sheep and cows and all that good stuff. So this is going to happen around this time period, when before all the animals were wild game. Now we're able to domesticate them and make sure that they can provide us with some source of food or assist us in other processes with these complex societies. Just some examples of what things look like. I mean, this is what a non-domesticated banana looks like. This is what corn looked like. This is what watermelon looks like before we domesticated it. And my favorite down here, this is a peach, 4,000 BCE. We're talking about a little thing that's about the size of a cherry. And from there, I mean, I don't have a peach on me, but you know what a peach looks like now. It just transforms these fruits and foods. And by transforming the food, we're also transforming the environment. But it makes it more edible, it makes it more reliable to grow, and it makes things easier for people to survive in these agricultural communities. So we do have these agricultural societies. It's my farmer right there. And these agricultural societies are also called agrarian. So if you ever see that term right here, agrarian, these are people who are focused on doing the farming. We also have another group of people down here. They are called the pastoralists. Think about pastoralists in terms of people who are herding animals. It might be, you might have a group of 100 sheep being herded by a group of sheep herders. And they're traveling still from kind of place to place. They don't just stay in one place. They need to take their sheep to where their sheep can eat. So we have these agricultural people who are staying in one spot. We have these pastoralists who are traveling from place to place. So the pastoralists are going to end up occasionally interacting with these agricultural societies. That's my handshake there. And by occasionally interacting, these pastoralists are going to help transport knowledge and ideas to agricultural societies. So our pastoralist group here interacts with an agricultural society, Society X, let's call them. And then they travel to another place and meet up with agricultural society Y. Well, these pastoralists are going to bring what they heard and learned about from agricultural society X and transmit that to Y. So although this society right here, X, is stable and they aren't moving anywhere and they're not really interacting with Y, they do get this knowledge transformed or brought to them by these pastoralists. So kind of an important piece of that. Also, just to point out, it's not on here, but there are still nomads. There are still nomads today in the 21st century. Nomads are going to be around, and they are still around today. So we have this kind of three groups. We have the agricultural, we have the pastoralist, and we still have the nomadic people who are still not settled down, and they are traveling from place to place depending upon the season. So with this, the agrarian and the pastoralist, some positive and negatives on society, and you can kind of see them all here. Really, we get a more reliable source of food, although some people, historians, have debated how much more reliable agrarian societies were compared to nomadic, because with agrarian societies, you have floods, you have bad crop years, and then everyone starves. You have diseases that are going to be spread. But for the most part, we'll consider it to be a more reliable source of food. As a result of being able to stay in one place, you can have more children. You need your children to farm the land with you. You can't do it by yourself. So people are going to have greater amounts of kids. When you were a nomad before, you couldn't have a lot of kids. You can't have 8 kids trying to bring them from place to place, season to season, and feed them and hope that they survive. So now we see this huge explosion in population. Also, people are going to have what we call specialization of labor. Not everyone is going to end up being a farmer. You have enough food that you can feed people who might be doing other jobs, whether it is a priest, whether it is a merchant, whether it is a scribe, whether it is warriors, because now that we are settled in one place, we can accumulate wealth. And that neighboring town, because remember, we're community X, community Y sees how much stuff we have, and somebody over there says, hey, let's go invade X and take all their stuff. So we need these warrior class people to help protect our people. Lastly, we're going to see tons of improvements in agriculture. Irrigation systems are going to be developed. We need to transport these foods that we're making, so we see the invention of the wheel, which happens in the Mesopotamia region, which allows us to transport goods. We see an increase in trade as a result of these agricultural and agrarian societies. But not all is peachy, rosy, hallelujah, this is the best thing ever. There are a ton of negative things that come out of these societies as well. One, we are transforming the environment. You have to clear the land. You have to irrigate the land. You're domesticating plants and animals who are now going to have a huge impact on the environment. So that's a problem. We're also going to see this increase in population, which is fantastic. Hey, we got more people. We can survive longer. High five. The problem with this is we now have diseases. We now have wars. We now have people competing for resources that they didn't have to worry about competing over before. And as you know, hopefully, we're talking anytime you have a large population center disease issue, you have issues of how do you get rid of human waste? What if it impacts the water supply? What if people drink from that water supply that has been impacted by this waste? So you have to come up with solutions in your society in order to continue to survive. And the last thing, and what I think is probably the most key and significant, is we're going to see changing from a switch from where nomadic groups were pretty much equal between men and women. Now we're going to see these patriarchal societies. Men are going to dominate the government structure. And primarily the reason is that women are going to be asked to be childbearers and child rearers, raising the children, which gives men the opportunity to farm. It gives men the opportunity to go out and be the warriors. And for the most part, this warrior class is going to become the political leaders. And women, because they are not afforded that opportunity, are going to kind of, in most of these societies, be looked down upon. They're going to be of a lower class and a lower expectation of what they can do and what they're allowed to do. So that's kind of the wrap up. Short and sweet today, basic stuff. This whole time period of Unit 1 is only 5% of the entire AP World exam. So between this video and the next video, we're really looking at about 5%. So the next time that you sit down and you watch me speak to you and teach this to you, we're looking at the start of civilizations and the river valleys. So we're going to look at the Nile River, Mesopotamia, the Yellow River, and the Indus River, and we'll kind of go through them. But that's my wrap up. Hope you liked it. Thanks for watching. Write down any questions you have always, and make sure that if you do have any questions, when we come to class the next time I see you, you actually can ask them to me. Sound good? Have a good day.